Hey, man.
Ah, hello. My name is Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, dude, I know. What's up?
While I've confronted some formidable foes in my time, I now face someone entirely new. You.
Bro, what the fuck are you talking about?
Fighting on the side of the guerrillas, whose means of overthrowing a powerful dictator include playing with dogs, building weapons from trash,
What the fuck is going on
and
in the
running
background there?
rampant through the streets like an
fuck are ya?
untamed circus animal? Before you take up this romantic notion of being a freedom fighter, let me ask you a question. Are you prepared to die for your cause?
Fuck, what a cooked cunt.
Hey cunts, welcome back to another game review. Today we're talking about the newest entry in the Far Cry series, Far Cry 6. This was a game I bought sort of spontaneously last year. It wasn't really on my radar, and going off all the marketing material and everything they showed off, I thought it was going to disappoint me, but was I wrong? This game ditches that whole Far Cry 5 silent protagonist shtick, which is really good because it lets Far Cry 6's protagonist Denny bounce off all the colourful characters in the world a lot more, which is, I think, part of this game's charm. And not only is Denny a really well-written character, I think, a lot of the side characters I really enjoyed as well. Some of them not so much, but one in particular, Juan Cortez, fucking funny cunt. Keeping with tradition also is Far Cry's absolute art for creating these antagonists that you just love to hate. And Giancarlo Esposito does an absolutely fucking amazing job as Anton Castillo in this game. A bit of a unique take on this dynamic, however, in Far Cry 6 is Anton's son, Diego, which we see him trying to corrupt him and sort of turn him into basically Anton Jr. But I absolutely love this dynamic and what it actually does for the story as a whole. One thing I will say I'm disappointed by is something that relates to some spoilers for Far Cry 5. So if you don't want spoilers for Far Cry 5 and I guess this game as well, maybe skip to the time code I've got here because, yeah, there's going to be some major spoilers. Are we good? Alright, let's go. So remember back in Far Cry 5 when nukes fell and fucking destroyed everything? Well, that's sort of stepped back on. They've done a bit of backpedaling here, and from what we see, there's no signs of nuclear fallout whatsoever. This game takes place in 2021, whereas Far Cry 5 took place in 2018, so there should be, I don't know, something. But to be quite honest, there's never really been any concrete connections between the Far Cry games. There's been little hints here and there, but nothing actually to say, yes, these games are all connected, so if you don't care about the Far Cry as like a continuation, you're not going to give a shit about this. I hope this game would end sort of around the same time the bombs fell as in 5, so you'd see it from like a different perspective, I guess, or even just reference it. But I guess referencing it would be hard without making this game post-apocalyptic, unless they're hinting at the ending where you don't arrest Joseph being Kenan because the bombs don't fall, or you don't see them fall, but I doubt it. I will say that isn't my only gripe with Far Cry 6's ending, but that's going into spoilers that I guess spoils this actual game, and I don't want to do that. It's still worth playing, so I'll leave that alone. Alright, now that we've got those spoilers out of the way, let's continue. Another prop I'll give to this game is the visuals. It looks fucking amazing. And some of those environments too, they're just like lush and just beautiful, basically. It's sort of what I'd say Far Cry 3 would look like now if it was made for current gen. It's also worth noting I played this on the PS5 with no performance or any sort of issues like that, which is weird because it's a fucking Ubisoft game. How could there not be issues? Another sort of plus in the visual department is the guns. They're really well modeled and they look fucking nice. In addition to that, there's also shitloads of paint jobs, heaps of attachments. You can end up making some really, really cool looking guns that actually have a fair bit of visual difference. But one thing they've introduced in this game to sort of add more variety to the weapons are these resolver weapons, which are essentially cobbled together homemade sort of guns. They're a really nice sort of mix-up to the Far Cry flavour. And I know homemade sort of weapons sounds a bit weird, but there's a fucking CD launcher, there's a silenced nail gun, so mate, what more could you want, really? And sort of going on from the guns is also the combat in this game. I really fucking like it. With the snipers, a headshot is a fucking headshot. Doesn't matter what sort of fucking head armor you're wearing, this 50 BMG is going through that fucking helmet. I don't give a shit. And this game pulls that off really well. This also helps at that sort of more stealth-centric focus this game's taking, I feel. There's nothing more frustrating in a game than getting a headshot and that alerts like a whole camp or some shit, and it's like, bro, that should have fucking killed you. But yeah, as I said, there's a very sort of, almost like a push to go stealth in this game, which It's not for everyone, so you might not enjoy that. I guess that could also deter some people, knowing that if you get like a one headshot with a sniper, that's it. But I guess it comes down to the sort of games you like. So I played this game on action mode, which is actually the hardest difficulty it offers, with the other being story, which is sort of the hold your hand, no real challenges. But even on action mode, I think there was only really one mission I had to play through a few times, so there's nothing overly difficult from my perspective. If you're after something that's going to absolutely bust your balls, this might not be your tool of choice. So going back to the weapons for a second, if you've watched this channel a few times, you probably know I'm an absolute stickler for gun sounds. I love when they just punch. And this game has some really good sound design for the guns. They absolutely punch. They're just really good, an absolute pleasure to fire. And for a game that focuses on guns like Far Cry 6 does, you really need to nail that design. You really need to make it fun to fire the guns in your game. So a couple of mechanics that, I guess in the same vein as like shooting being a major mechanic, another I didn't find quite as polished was the driving and the climbing. So I want to cover both of those right now. The driving in this game just does not hit the mark for me at all. I find the ATVs are a bit more decent to drive, they feel a bit smoother, but I don't know what it is about the driving that just wasn't a fan. I basically didn't drive anywhere unless I had to for the story missions. But I guess that could also be in part to how fun the wingsuit is. Because if you fast travel, you can sort of drop in from the sky and wingsuit anywhere, which is really fucking cool. The climbing being clunky is sort of a bit more unsurprising to me, because I usually find these first-person games with a bit of climbing are a bit clunky, just because the perspective isn't really made for it, I don't think. It's a sort of a more clunky version of the climbing from, say, Dying Light or something like that. So it's a bit less polished than that, but if you like that game, you may like the climbing here. I don't know. In addition to everything I've said here, there's also a whole co-op experience. So much like Far Cry 5, Far Cry 6 has a campaign that you can do completely in co-op. Now, I will say straight up, I didn't have any mates jump in for co-op campaign. I actually played some just normal co-op with some mates outside missions, fucking around, doing some of the special operations and stuff like that. Overall, I think co-op really works well for the absolute chaos that is Far Cry, though I can't help but think 3 or even 4-player co-op would be a massive selling point. I mean, it's the whole reason I bought Dying Light 2. Yes, that is how late this review is. Just going back to those special operations missions I mentioned briefly, they're sort of these small missions that are introduced early on, and they're sort of heavily implied that you should do them in co-op, even to the point where you don't get as many or any benefits for doing them solo. But they're really fun just to fuck around with a mate, and they're also a massive part of the post-game, which is another thing this game does really well. The post-game is sort of like a never-ending weekly sort of rotation, which I won't go too much into that. It's not really a spoiler, but you want to check that out for yourself. It's really good. I enjoyed it. At the time of release, I think there's only 2 special operations out, but I think there's 4 now as the time of this filming. So they've sort of trickled them out. I don't think there's any more to come. The 2 I played basically consist of getting from point A to point B, collecting an item, and getting it back to point A. The catch is, keeping that item in the sun actually makes it get closer and closer to exploding. So you've actually got to hide in the shade, run it underwater to make it cooler and stuff like that. I thought it was really unique and really cool, especially in co-op, because you can have a mate sort of scout out, take out some enemies, and guide you from shade spot to get to the end. In conclusion, I feel like Far Cry 6 is a really, really good step in the right direction after Far Cry 5. Not that I hated that game, I just think this game is such a better place for Far Cry to be in. I'd even go so far as to say Far Cry 6 is now my favourite in the series, even over Far Cry 3. I went to the length of platinuming in this game, which I only really do if something grabs me really well, and this game has. As for my rating of this game, I'd have to give it a solid 7.5 Molotovs out of 10. For more game reviews, definitely hit the subscribe button and make sure to hit the little bell as well. Also, like and comment, it all helps out, helps keep the channel going. I also stream on Twitch every Wednesday, 8:30 PM Australian Eastern Standard or Daylight Savings Time, depending on the time of year, so jump over there. We're always up for a bit of shit talking. Jump in the Discord, all that sort of shit's in the link in my description. So yeah, check it out. Love to have you there. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It really means a lot to me. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you have a fucking good day for me, will ya? Yeah, good cunt.